Welcome to another edition of Walton Entertainment. Today we'll have more news, information, and entertainment from your local hometown. When most of us think about a dog in the backyard, this is what we picture. We never really think about the dog that's tied or chained to a post or a tree. The truth is, neither Walton County nor the city of Monroe has passed leash laws that would totally outlaw any dog being chained up outside unattended. Today, I speak to the animal activist Unchained, Mona and Sally, who are fighting the way through the red tape and the politicians to change the laws.
Well, I started out, I used to volunteer at a couple of different animal controls, and I saw the worst of the worst coming in as far as dogs being abused, neglected, and just the overcrowding was incredible. Trying to find rescues, adopters, it was just a never-ending, and it still is, never-ending, worry. And anyway, so every once in a while, a special, they're all special, but a dog that had been very abused would come in, and they kind of really take your heart. There was one pit bull named Addie that came into the shelter, and she literally was burned, pretty much all her body, and she became my passion. I had to help her, and I finally we found a rescue, but the rescue was up in Canada, and so Addie needed a local foster, and all of a sudden I found out there was a foster, and I was so happy, and so I had to find this foster's name, and I called her. Just so happened to be this lady here who lives 10 minutes away from me, and so I went to meet her, and we've been inseparable ever since.
We have the same passion for sure.
Yes.
And the Unchained Walton, that came out of cruelty to animals, being chained or tethered to a post or tree.
Yeah, neglect, cruelty, yes.
Tell us about some of the worst that you've seen, and why this is important.
Okay, you want to talk about that?
Yes. Basically, when we started driving around Walton County and Monroe predominantly, we noticed chain dogs everywhere. It was kind of shocking because we didn't even have to look hard. Mm-hmm. So we started taking down addresses of the dogs that looked like they were pretty neglected and had no water, that the shelter was not adequate, that type of thing. But what we found is every time we drove the streets, we would find 6, 7, 8 dogs in need in about a half an hour. But there's a couple instances that stand out. One dog was at the end of a residential road on its side, and we didn't know if it was sick or dead. Turned out it was dead, with people inside the home, cars all parked there. And the dog had been dead either for several days or had an untreated tumor for quite some time because it was bloated. Those kind of things you never forget, because the dog died on a chain with people inside the home. That's not okay. And even though we have ordinances, sometimes these folks are not charged. Sometimes when they're charged, even when it goes to court, they are not given any type of punishment that is suitable for letting your animal die on a chain while you have ignored it. So anyway, we have a few instances. We have a couple other dogs that were kept in a gully that we located on December 31st last year.
Yeah, New Year's Eve.
New Year's Eve, and that was a bad situation. Basically, we were told by a resident nearby that dogfighting was going on nearby. So 5 weeks later, the court date came up, and the dogs were finally impounded by animal control. But for 5 weeks, they stayed in the gully without proper shelter and really bad weather. So it's that kind of frustration that we have, because when you notice an animal suffering, you want to do something about it soon, and ASAP. So anyway, luckily those dogs have gone on. One has a home and one is in a foster out of state. But the amount of pit bulls that are abused in Walton County, specifically pit bulls, and we love all dogs, is pretty astounding. And we would like to do something about the fact that it's nonstop breeding. People breed them for quick cash. They don't have to get a breeding permit. They don't have to get a business license. And then the taxpayers of the county, they foot the bill. When those dogs enter the shelter, when they hurt someone, when they go around stray and get pregnant and puppies go everywhere, it becomes a public safety problem and it becomes a taxpayer issue.
What is the solution, do you think, with the pit bull?
Well, I think that, we've talked about this a lot. We're doing research for even what other states are doing, but we feel that anybody who wants to breed any dog, but especially a pit bull, needs to have a county or a city business license, a breeder permit. Now, just because you get a breeder permit does not mean you can breed. If the shelter is killing pit bulls at the time that you think you want to breed your dog, the shelter, whoever gives out the permit, should say no, not right now. Like a moratorium almost. Let's have a moratorium on breeding pits. What's wrong with that? There's got to be a way to control this problem. We don't have all the answers, but we're working hard to come up with good solutions. We know mandatory spay-neuter doesn't work, but why not require permits? Make it a little more difficult for these people. Have their business license posted on the outside of their door, and be accommodating if code enforcement wants to come in and inspect their property because they are a business.
Would you say that most dogs that are chained or tethered are mistreated?
Well, kind of. Yeah. They're usually they're living in the back all by themselves. We see it. The green water, if any water. They're lonely. They're dying for attention. Most of them have heartworms. They get no attention whatsoever. Now, I'm not saying every dog, but the majority, when they're chained in a backyard, there's a reason, or a front yard.
One thing that we've always told the commissioners is that we are not trying to tell people that they can't put their animals out on a tether when they're happy and healthy and enjoying the day. We're talking about dogs that live in a circle of mud. Their waste is everywhere. Again, their water is usually in a 5-gallon bucket that's either knocked over, frozen, or black and green. So this is what we're talking about. We're talking about a dog that's fed every few days. These dogs, several of them we come across have kind of given up on life. Mm-hmm. Others are so upset about being on a tether. They're very, very unsocialized, and they're dangerous. Mm-hmm. It's a big public safety risk. A lot of kids in Georgia have been attacked. A lot of adults have. We have an adult in Loganville that was attacked by a chain pit. Again, it's all breeds that are chained, but it just happens to be in Walton County. 95% of the dogs that are chained are pit bull breeds. And we feel that dog ownership is a privilege. It should come with certain responsibilities. And one thing that we have found, and this is factual, is that a chained, neglected dog in the yard is a sign of other problems in the home. We have had 2 instances where we begged and begged and begged for the dogs to be checked on, and when they finally had the police involved, they had charges of child abuse, elder abuse, and criminal activity with drugs. The thing is, beyond it becoming a public safety issue and a taxpayer issue, property values are lowered. Mm-hmm. No one wants to live next door to someone who gets a dog, chains it up, puts up the no trespassing sign, and then does their thing. It's a property value thing.
Who and what is against this happening in Walton County? Who are your obstacles?
Well, basically, as far as the no tether, the commissioners are the ones that have been our problem. We've given them so much information. We've given them books this thick showing all the reasons that tethering is bad, chaining is bad. I don't know. We don't know why they do not want this. We don't know.
Walton is one of the few metro Atlanta counties that does not have a 24/7 unattended tether ban. Athens Clark has had theirs for over 10 years. DeKalb and Fulton have had theirs for over 10 years. Gwinnett, it's probably been about 3 years.
Hall County.
Hall County. And then when you research, several counties in Georgia that are very rural even have it. So it's a county thing. Some cities do it. But despite what the county does, some cities have tether bans. And, you know, yes, they can't be enforced all the time, but it's a start. It's a start. And we also want to get in the schools and educate, because, again, if a child is taught to treat an animal correctly, hopefully we will not see this kind of problem 10, 15, 20 years from now.
Right.
I know some of the commissioners are worried about that seeming like a tax. More money into animal control will help with enforcement if they can hire more officers. And some cities charge $10 for dogs that aren't fixed. But if you're going to breed your dog in an area where there are strays and dogs at the shelter being euthanized on a routine basis, you should have to go to your county, get approval for that, pay a fee, and then that way they can inspect your home, see what's going on. Because the pit bulls that are being bred at a very alarming rate in Walton,
In City of Monroe.
they're not necessarily going to decent homes. They're not being vetted. They spread parvo. It's a quick cash thing. Usually make about $200 per puppy, and a mother can have 12 puppies, sometimes more, twice a year.
And what do you say to the people that say that if you take them off of their tether or their chain, they're going to be loose in the neighborhood? And these people that do this are not going to build a fence.
You know, the people we approach, I mean, we have put up several kennels. We put up 20 by 20 kennels. We do everything we can to help.
In Walton County, you cannot call animal control anonymously. So what happens is many people who are super frustrated and heartbroken about something going on next door don't call because they're afraid of retaliation. There's two folks that I recently called animal control about, of course using my name, and this is in the past few months, and two of them have contacted me to find out what did I want to know, why did I get involved, and that kind of thing. That's a little disconcerting. Honestly, I love animals enough that I don't really care. But a lot of people do care. So the whole not being able to report anonymously is bad. Most metro counties will allow that. So that's definitely been a tough thing. But back to your question about what will people do that are not going to put up a fence. As Mona said, we have offered discount fencing panels to folks. But another thing is this, and hopefully again as years go by, people will realize that owning a dog is a responsibility, comes with great responsibility, and bring it inside at night and it with you. Put it in a large crate if you need to. Have it be part of the family. We're talking about 24/7 unattended tethering. We're talking about getting a big boat chain, putting it on the dog's collar, and leaving it there for its lifetime. That's what we're talking about. There are so many different things that you can do for an animal to take care of it well. People need to go back to walking their dogs. If you don't have a fence, walk your dog. Walk your dog. There are a lot of different ways that you can take care of your pet without chaining it, but mainly if your only option is to chain the dog, don't get the dog.
Yeah. The chaining and backyard breeding, they kind of go hand in hand also. So they both need to be addressed. They're both critical problems in Walton, in the city of Monroe, both.
After speaking with Mona and Sally, I decided to head over to Animal Control and talk with Bill Wise. I asked Bill, is there a problem in Walton County and the city of Monroe with tethered dogs?
Yeah, I would say we've got kind of a whole range of problems, from tethered dogs to even dogs that aren't tethered. You know, unfortunately, when you add that human factor, someone can neglect a dog just as bad in a pen or in a house as they do on the chain. However, the dogs on the chain, one of the big problems is that they're just sitting out there and not able to escape maybe another dog that comes to the property to attack them, or interactions with wildlife. So there's definitely that factor there, among others.
Do you see that most tethered dogs are pits in the county?
That would be real difficult to say. As far as our intake goes, it's just over a quarter of the dogs that come in are pit bull mix. Now, I don't know if that's just because there's more of them in the county, or if it's just something with that breed that the owners aren't caring for them as much as with other breeds. So it's really hard to say. I don't have really specific statistics on how many dogs are tethered and what breed they are. But just anecdotally, you can ride through the city and you'll see a lot of chained up pit bulls.
Compared to other animal shelters in neighboring counties, does Walton County have a problem with pit bulls? Do you see a lot of that?
No, I wouldn't say so. I've been doing animal control for 23 years. When I first started in the late 90s, it was a lot of chows and chow mixes. And then we had shepherds. Before that, before I was in the 80s, it was Dobermans. And then it just seems like for the last 10, 15 years, it's been pit bulls. I worked 10 years at another county in Georgia. Same thing, seemed like the kennel was full of pit bulls and chihuahuas all the time. I worked 3 years in Virginia. The area we were in, which wasn't far from where Michael Vick was living, was a lot of pit bulls. So I wouldn't say it's anything unique to Walton County.
And as far as a pet owner goes, someone who tethers their dog, is that someone who is not responsible as someone who has one fenced in or keeps it in the house?
Not necessarily. There's a lot of times, especially when I worked in another jurisdiction, we had a high population of students that were renting, and they had dogs, and of course they either couldn't build a fence on their landlord's property, or didn't have the funds to build a fence. And so on a nice day, they'll put their dog out on a tether, and everything was fine. And with the ordinance that we have now, where it requires an adequate chain, an adequate collar, food, water, shelter, I think if someone's abiding by that there shouldn't be a problem. Like I said, you can neglect a dog on a chain just as much as you can in a pen. One of my worries, is that we pass a law, but we haven't changed the human side of it. And a lot of those dogs will be taken from a tether and put in a small makeshift pen made of pallets. And so a lot of what I think needs to be done is getting the word out to the community. Passing laws helps, but really this needs to be a public education campaign. It's hard to believe we're almost at 2020 and still have these issues where people can't even get a simple rabies vaccine, but that's where we're at. And it really needs to be down on the grassroots level, like the Unchained group is trying to educate pet owners. Sometimes it's education, sometimes it's just helping them out, and then other times, we have to step in with the citations.
Creative artists can offer you a wide range of video production. Call the experts and discuss your project today, whether it's your special event or your company. Creative Artist, 770-267-7368. Creative Artist produces this program you're watching. Call Creative Artist today, 770-267-7368. Creative Artist, they'll put you in the spotlight.
This is, my book is memoir from 2010, when my first widow memoir came out, to my birthday last August. So it covers almost 10 years. My original book started out with the death of my husband in 2008. I published it in 2010. And I decided to do a follow-up because I've been writing things forever. But this is when I first got my book. It's Bedazzled by a Book. I did it. The thought blew my mind as I opened the box of books with my name printed boldly under the title, The Unfaithful Widow. What is an unfaithful widow? I'd hoped readers would ask that question and buy my book, the memoir of my first year alone and the fulfillment of my dream to share my story with others had just arrived from UPS. The book cover seemed the most appropriate cover ever in the history of publishing. Cat-eye sunglasses tossed casually across a white and pink background. Bedazzled by it all, I dreamed of book signings and perhaps a movie deal. Naive, but they say go big. The elevator pitch, etched in my mind, centered on my favorite 2009 romantic comedy. The Unfaithful Widow does for widows what the movie It's Complicated did for divorcees. Catchy, huh? The lead role made for a mature actor, but a cute one. I'd want my input on who would play my part. At 62, the widow word still seemed a stigma, making me old and unattractive. Valerie Bertinelli came to mind, adorable and perky, although younger and thinner, but her hair color matches. Sitting late at night on my patio, surrounded by 6 dogs, moonlight streaming down through the trees, I thought my house was the perfect movie set for my favorite director. Nancy Myers, are you listening? A retired federal employee and a hobby antique dealer, writing took me by surprise after my husband died. I'd send pathetic emails to friends at 2 a.m., my sadness overwhelming. Then I'd listen to music on YouTube, dance in the dark of the night, and my mood improved. Never mind, I'd email them again. I'm fine. I decided to start writing about my feelings privately rather than scattering through emails that worried everyone. What started as a coping mechanism became a passion I couldn't deny. I researched how to get published, finally deciding on a vanity press, but happily so. I paid the price and have my book. I didn't have time to wait to be wanted by a publisher. I wanted to find my creative path and make sense of my new life. May, the month that I lost my husband in 2008, no longer haunted me. A good month for good things to happen. I traded free rent in my basement suite for dog sitting with a male friend, a wonderful pastry chef who was moving back to Atlanta after breaking up with his partner. Visions of out-of-town book signings danced in my head. I munched on freshly baked cookies and worked on posts for my blog tour with WOW, Women on Writing. My official book launch was planned for June 26th, a grand gala in a huge Victorian home in downtown Atlanta that was a girlfriend's bed and breakfast. The goal was to turn the book signing into a fundraiser for animal rescue. The weekend was magical. My late husband's cousins drove from Indiana to spend a few days enjoying the festivities. Items for silent auction filled tables set up in the parlor. The 1979 white Corvette Stingray I purchased from a man on a dating site that first summer as a widow was parked in the circular driveway, making a grander entrance than I did. It was a character in my book. As usual, I ran late. 3 outfit changes later and a trip to pick up sandwiches, I barely made it there before my guests. The Victorian Tudor full of antique furnishings and rooms that spun off a huge entrance hallway with a grand staircase added to the ambiance of the evening. We had live music, food, an open bar, and wonderful weather to accommodate the night. I learned a lesson that evening about myself and others, a good lesson that will set the pace for me down the road. My original plan was to donate only the profit from each book to the rescue group, keeping my initial cost of buying the copies. Then something serendipitous happened. The first person to walk to my table was a customer I'd met at the Atlanta Botanical Gardens the year before when I worked part-time in the gift shop. She had many small dogs and was into dog rescue. Blank check in her hand, she asked, "How do I make this out?" A simple question that changed everything. "To Animal Action Rescue," I blurted out. My mind boggled on how to separate the donation part from my wholesale costs. I'm horrible with numbers. "I hope this will help." She handed over a check for $100. A huge amount over the $15 book price, a tax deduction for her, but a grand gesture for the animals. From that moment on, I decided all money would go to the rescue group. The generosity of my guests made the evening more than a book launch. It wasn't about me, it was about dogs needing homes. "Keep the change," someone handed me a $20 bill. I'll just write this for a bit more. The $15 book price became a $25 donation. In all, with the book sales and silent auction, we raised over $1,300 that night. I went home with an empty pocket but a heart full of love. My late husband, a wonderful man with a touch of curmudgeon, fancied this quote, "No good deed goes unpunished." He'd say it as a joke and laugh. 3 days after my book signing, an incident occurred that made me think of that quote, but I didn't find humor in the situation. Still basking in the glow of the previous Saturday night and feeling darn proud of myself, I ran barefoot into my kitchen, straight into a puddle of dog pee. Slipping on the wet vinyl, I hydroplaned into the air, landing so hard on my butt I dislocated my left shoulder. Somehow I got myself up, my shoulder protruding so far in front of my body I couldn't stand straight. I called my neighbor. The last thing I saw as I closed the kitchen door to head to the hospital were 6 dogs staring at me, each looking more innocent than the next. One trip to the emergency room would take care of everything, I told myself. The hospital was so close to the house I could have walked, but I was in so much pain, even the drive in my neighbor's car seemed endless. I stayed focused, wondering what drugs they might give me. My vision of hitting the road in my Corvette, signing my book at various locations, while taking a few side trips to look for small antique treasures for my booth began to fade as we pulled in front of the emergency room entrance. I started to wonder what the universe had plans that were different than mine. What else could go wrong? Then a new horror set in. I realized the seat of my jeans was soaked with dog pee. Doesn't get any creepier than that. I hobbled through the glass doors, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. One thing for sure, I started thinking about what to write for my blog. Dog pee on my butt would make a cute post, and after all, I published a book and called myself a writer. I'd figure out how to make this work. So that's, and if you didn't like that, then there's no sense in my doing the rest of the book, because I'm screwed.
That's great.
So anyhow, and so that's the grand, after my introduction, that's the first chapter of the book. And it gets a crazy trip from there on.
You know, I think the title, The Unfaithful Widow, is just so evocative.
Yes.
And just really made me very curious.
Well, if you read the first book, you'd have your answer.
We have it at home.
Are you in need of tractor work, bush hogging, grading, cleaning, sod installs, and drainage repair? Then you need Bold Springs Landscape Solutions. Bold Springs Landscape Solutions is a licensed, insured, and certified landscape solutions company. Their services include grading and drainage, bush hogging and clearing work, as well as fencing, landscape, and sod installation. Contact Bold Springs Landscape Solutions today. JT, tell us a little bit about co-work at the Metro and how this started and where the vision came from.
So I used to run an IT company, and we always needed places to work. Obviously, if we were out at a client in Atlanta, we needed to knock some contracts out, get some work done. We would always use a company called Rome in Alpharetta, and that was a great spot to work. It was creative. It was just a great spot to really get stuff done and feel like you're a part of something bigger than the small company you're a part of. And I noticed a lot of kind of synergy and people working together through that space and different companies that had nothing to do with each other. And one of my friends managed that place, and he told me about how much revenue was generated within those companies. So they're basically, it's almost creating somewhat of a self-sustaining environment where people can literally bounce ideas off each other and then provide services to each other, and really help companies get off the ground. So being in Monroe, obviously there's nothing like that. I was looking at renting a space from one of my customers just down the street next to a dentist, and started looking at it. Was about 4,000 square feet, and I had 3 employees, so it's obviously way more space than I needed. I have a lot of friends in this area that either work from home from companies in Atlanta. They may be self-employed. They may, I've got plenty of friends that wanted a spot to work, but didn't necessarily want to pay for the overhead of an office. So I was looking at potentially renting out some desks and some offices in there just to help carry my overhead. And there was another little area where I thought it would be really cool to do a rock climbing gym, or it was a bouldering gym. It was very small, probably about the size of this room. And it was just enough that, again, some friends and family could help pitch in, cover the cost, and it would be a fun thing to do at break, and maybe turn into a small business. And the goal of both of those businesses was obviously for both of them to need to be their own independent businesses, where that would be my office for the IT space, and eventually I would need another location for co-working and another location for the rock climbing gym. I found out that this building was still available. It was listed for years. The bank that owned it was very hard to work with. Many people in this community have tried to get this place under contract, and it was literally next to impossible. So I guess it took someone who knew how to bug people just enough, like myself, and wasn't really going to take no for an answer. Is that the building's for sale? I've got a partner. We need to buy it, and there's no reason that we can't make a contract work out. The building's for sale. It's for sale. So we finally worked that out. We found out the city wanted to purchase the green space next to us, and we worked out an agreement with them. They've been absolutely paramount in helping this get off the ground, as far as just kind of organic growth. Their marketing, Monroe does a spectacular job of supporting their small businesses. So we worked out a deal with them where they were able to acquire that piece of property for the Monroe Town Green. We were able to acquire this building, and so the first phase for myself was obviously the co-working space. To get that going, we've got an axe throwing gym coming in. Their lease starts September 1st, so just around the corner on the other half of this brick building. Major Humphreys Brewery is coming in with a full brewing facility and tap room in the back portion of this. And then the plan is to do a rock climbing gym in the other half of the 13,000 square foot warehouse over there. So kind of able to do all those visions in one space and do them 100% the first time.
What attracted you about Monroe, and do you think that this town is becoming younger and younger?
I've been in Monroe my whole life in different capacities. So I lived in Loganville, but was in Gwinnett County schools because we're in Gwinnett County. My grandfather's business has been out here since I was born. So it's a family business. I was out here all the time visiting for lunch, Christmas parties, Thanksgiving gatherings, stuff like that. So I've been able to see Monroe transform from what it used to be to what it is now over the span of 30 years. So it's been really cool. I mean, I remember driving through here as a 5-year-old just thinking it was kind of a dumpy little town. I didn't really look forward to driving from Loganville to Monroe. It was just to go see Pops. There wasn't really any other aspect to that. Now you've got kids begging to come down here and go to the story shop. We're seeing people come out here and throw the Frisbee and walk their dogs on this green space already just because it's cut. The city's not even necessarily advertising it as green space, but there's an obvious desire for people to have something to do. And the city of Monroe has done an incredible job of preparing this place for that growth before it actually happens. And I think that the maturity of that preparation has not, it certainly has attracted some younger folks, but it's also made the area more stable for more mature adults and people just in kind of, the middle of their life. So you see a huge amount of growth in probably the 35 to 50-year-old range, where people are seeing this as a good place to bring their families and raise a family, as well as some young professionals. There's certainly a large amount of young professionals come in here, creatives. There's if you walk downtown, you see a lot of people that you would not expect to see in Monroe. And I think that's fantastic. I think that the city is doing a good job of being mindful to not just gentrify this area and try to make everybody fit a mold, to encourage creativity and encourage uniqueness. And I think that that's why you're kind of seeing just that. You're seeing 18-year-olds who would typically be leaving town and going to live at their college town, and instead they're commuting because they enjoy their city, they enjoy where they live. And you see some other people that would normally probably be looking to move further out, and they're staying put. That revenue is staying in the town.
And tell us about the clientele. We were talking before the interview started that you see people from all walks of life, from all ages.
Yep. Yeah, it's been really cool. I mean, when I first put this place together, if you go to most co-working spaces, especially in Atlanta, it's certainly a younger crowd. I would say between probably 22 to maybe 35 or so. There's certainly some exceptions to that on both sides, but that's the bulk of the business there. We're seeing everything from, I would say, our youngest basic member is probably 27 or so. We just had a gentleman sign up who's 5 years from retirement. This is where his job has allowed him to work from home full time, and they're paying for him to have a desk here. And again, I mean, he's probably 60 something, I mean,
And it's much more suited than Starbucks.
Absolutely. And I worked out of Coffee Camper for years. Crystal is a great friend of mine. She's super excited about this place. She comes here and uses it. And it's not to discount any type of coffee shop or anything like that, but sometimes it's just not suitable for business. If you're trying to be on a call, if you're trying to conduct an interview or have a meeting and you've got people shopping and making coffee in the background and everything, it's just not conducive to business.
And to me, if you work from home, sometimes the longer you do that, there's a blurred line between your workspace and where you live. And this to me would, I think, raise your productivity in your home business, because you're getting out, you're going to a space where work is first thought.
Absolutely. That was huge for me. I worked from home for 4 years, and it's real easy to look out the window and say, I think I'm going to go cut the grass in the middle of the day, and this is my lunch break that's been 3 hours long, and just equally detrimental to your life is it's 8 o'clock and my office is right here, and I'm going to go work here instead of hang out with my family. Which is probably more detrimental. Family should be more important than your job. So it definitely serves a purpose in this community. And there was a lot of naysayers. There was a lot of people that said, "Oh, you're going to do great," And I think that we've been open for 4 months now, and we're on track to break even next month, which is a huge blessing. Beyond blessing. So. The support from the community has been great. We've got a lot of people a lady who just walked out, her kid goes to school at a private school around here, and she lives about an hour away. She works from home. So she's able to go drop her child off, come here, $100 a month, unlimited coffee, unlimited water, a productive place, comfortable place. She goes, picks her kid up and goes home. So it fills a void for a lot of different scenarios. And, I think that Monroe is finally ready for that, and I think that this place should help encourage that type of work-play balance and lifestyle that's healthy to be happy and thrive.
Today on Feed the Goats, we're going to try some pancakes. Beth, you like pancakes? Oh, you like pancakes, don't you? Come on, you have pancakes. Beth, he's not trying to get your pancakes. You eat pancakes. Come on, Beth. Like pancakes. Good, Beth. Come here. Take the last bite. Well, as you can see, Beth likes pancakes. I don't know about the other two because she won't give them a chance. This is Paul Mullins with Feed the Goats.
We're right in the middle of summer, and that means it's time to get those portraits done. Summer portraits are so wonderful for families and for individuals. Whether it just be you or your family, it's time to book that summer photo session. Let me turn your summer moments into portrait art. Contact me today at 770-656-5794 or check me out on the web at darylproductions.com. Welcome to another edition of Through the Camera. I'm your photographer, Daryl Everidge. We're out at Conyers today, out at the International Horse Park, where we're going to experience some model trains that you can ride on. This is very interesting stuff. We ran into Peter, an old friend of mine, who's really into this stuff. He's got his own train.
I knew from the time I was a little kid, just introduced to trains, that this was something I wanted to do. I figured out when I was 9 years old how I was going to save my allowance and build one. That didn't happen. I was 30 until I started, and then between wife, kids, job, whatever, it took me 15 years to build my engine and train that I've got now. But I've got 2 sons and a daughter. She could care less, but my sons, they love it. We go home covered. You see my face has got a little soot on it already. We've been just running for a couple hours this morning, and they'll do the same. We go home dirty, nasty, and love every second of it.
Coming down the railroad track. Look yonder coming down the railroad track. That's the orange blossom special. I'm gonna bring my baby back. And I'll lose in New York.
North Georgia Live Steamers. We've been in existence since 1981. We've started as just kind of a historical group. People really enjoy building the locomotives, playing with trains. These are just kind of the ultimate trains to play with. They're big. They're actually fully functional miniatures of the real thing. This, like any other hobby, is you can spend as much as you want. You can spend as little as you want. Some guys are into building the infrastructure, building bridges and the steaming areas and welding and fabrication and stuff. They don't want to build an engine or a train. There are some guys, they'll spend $65,000 on a locomotive. I probably have less than $5,000 in mine, but I was able to do a lot of the work myself. Kind of a scrounged materials that people are throwing away. And so started with a set of plans. There are some castings. Had to do all the machine work myself, but it's sky's the limit.
The main thing is we enjoy the hobby, and so we want other people to enjoy it. And we've also picked up new members since we have been running up at the horse park once a year. And I just think the people enjoy it. I mean, I understand it's already been 100 people that have ridden, so that's a good turnout. And there comes some more.
This is awesome. My dad's part of this, so this is really great. This is amazing. I've been watching him do this for a long time, so it's really amazing.
What better way to welcome in the fall season than with the annual Autumn Fest? So come and enjoy some live entertainment. There's plenty of activities for the kids and around 200 vendors offering crafts, promoting local businesses, as well as food to tempt your taste buds.
We love coming to Autumn Fest each year, my kids and I. We love all the different vendors we have here. The food is phenomenal. It's just a good time for all of our family and to see everybody here at Loganville. It's just a joy.
Please come out and join us. You just cannot imagine how much fun you can have. Meet lots of new friends. I've made many friends over the years at the festival.
It's all happening at the Autumn Fest in downtown Loganville on Main Street. Saturday, October 19th, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. We'll see you there. This week, I stopped by and spoke with Valerie Ermitz, Senior Fitness Instructor from the Walton County Parks and Recreation Department. And I asked Valerie why it's important for seniors to stay physically fit.
You start slowing down naturally, and So it is harder to get motivated to get off the couch and go. Dealing with a lot of different things like arthritis and bursitis and achy joints, you know, things like that. You tend to want to just lay on the couch or stay in the rocking chair, you know, and not get up and move. So a lot of things like that. It's there's a saying about getting older. Getting older is not for sissies. It's not easy.
Tell us about Forever Fitness. You see the shirts if you come out here to the class and you're like, what is Forever Fitness?
We named it that because fitness is forever. And that's what I always say. You know, once you're aging, you don't come and you go for 2 or 3 weeks or 6 weeks playing or whatever. You got to keep it up. You got to keep moving forever.
Okay, Louie Louie. Skating. Drive that bus. Skating. And drive that bus. March. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, skate. And drive that bus. Skating. And drive that bus. March in place. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, skate. And drive that bus. Skating. And drive that bus. Tap that foot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Change. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and shoulder. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. March in place. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, skate. And drive that bus. Skating. And drive that bus. Drive that bus uphill. Drive that bus downhill. Drive that bus all over town. Knee up. Out, out, in, out, out, and in, out, out, in, cymbals. Again, again, burn it. Right march. Knee up. Out, out, in, out, out, and in, out, out, in, out, in, and cymbals. Again, again, Burn it. Cymbals again. 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 Burn it.
It's coming closer, the flames are now licking my body.
Knee up.
Won't you help me? I feel like I'm slipping away. It's hard
Out,
to breathe.
out, in,
My
and
chest is a
in.
heaving.
Out, in, and in. Out, out, in, out, in, and cymbals. Again. Again. Burn it. Burn it again. Hunka.
You're watching Walton Entertainment. So before you stress out, pack the car and drive hundreds of miles for a small 2 or 3 day vacation, why don't you sit down and see what state parks are near you and decide on a weekend away at a beautiful state park close to home. Welcome to Hard Labor Creek State Park. This is a 5,804-acre Georgia state park located between Fairplay and Rutledge, Georgia. There is so much to do at any Georgia state park. I encourage you to grab the family, grab a camera, get out this weekend, and visit a state park near you. It'll be the most fun you've had so close to home. Recently, I stopped by Hard Labor Creek State Park. It's just a short drive from where I live, and this is a perfect place to get back to nature. Whether you take a stroll down one of the many nature trails, or perhaps you just want to come over and enjoy a weekend of camping, or fishing, or just sitting around and doing nothing, then Hard Labor Creek State Park is the perfect place.
Hard Labor Creek is just under 6,000 acres of public lands between Morgan and Walton counties. We were started as a CCC recreation area in the 30s and given over to the state in 46. Since then, we've grown to include campgrounds, equestrian campgrounds. The 2 original CCC group camps are still here, which are real popular through the summer with churches and different large groups. We also have 20 cottages recently renovated and different picnic shelters and group shelters to use throughout the day. Well, we have several programs as we head into fall. The first coming up is our Persid Star Party. That's on August 10th from 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. That'll be down at our beach area. We've got very little light out here in this area of the county, so you should be able to see all the meteors as they come across the sky. It's easy to see how kids, especially at this park where our cell coverage isn't great, you can come out and really get away and really connect with those closest to you instead of worrying about, people that are far away. You can really sit and focus on your fishing or take quiet time on a trail or practice your mountain bike skills through the summer. And you can continue that into the fall. People forget we're 20 minutes from Madison, so it's not a big entry. You don't have to have a tent and or an RV or spend a bunch of money on a cottage or anything. You just come out for the day and have a picnic and enjoy each other instead of, rushing around and doing what you need to do.
Growing up in the South, I knew the value of that summer garden. A lot of us have busy lives now and can't have a garden. So if you don't want to eat out of a can, you either go pick it yourself at a farm, or you can take a short drive to the Crow's Nest.
Well, the Crow's Nest started on a whim. We decided that this end of town needed a little produce, and there are several farmers out here that we buy local from, and we just decided to come closer to them. And Kim Crow, who owns the Crow's store next door, was gracious enough to rent this for us, and we got started 4 years ago. When seasonal, which is your local squash, zucchini, tomatoes, okra, beans, and cantaloupe, watermelons. Anything that we can find that's local, we'll get.
What really took me back was the smell. When you walk in this place, it is delicious to your nose. All of the fruits and the vegetables mixed together, it is amazing. Then when you walk through here, you see all this fresh produce, the fresh vegetables and the fresh fruit. It is amazing. I loaded up with some sweet corn and it was delicious. I'll definitely go back. This is a great place. I recommend.
The difference is freshness, and we strive to have the freshest produce in town.
We go to the market about every other day to get fresh.
Correct, and we get it local from our farmers, and the freshness has a better taste because grocery stores shelf, and that takes all the vitamins and the freshness out of it. So buying local is the best way to go. The dog is our mascot, and she's here every day. We have a lot of customers that really come to see her, not us. Her name is Raya.
Whether you think about it or not, music is a part of our lives. And for Tracy Stever, music is her life. Recently, I had the opportunity to stop by Stever Studios and talk to Tracy about how important teaching music is to the next generation.
I worked for Primerica, and my boss allowed me to have a little side room. So after work, I'd work 9 to 5 as the office manager, and I'd get off and I'd have a few students come up to the office. I had about 3, and over time, a couple years, it just grew, and then I had 5, and then I had 10. And then I met my husband, and he said, why don't you quit that office job, and why don't you just go for it and just do music, since that's really your passion. So I got in touch with Sadie Krozik, and she leased me a couple rooms over here around the back of City Hall. And at that time, I brought on a few more teachers, and we just kept growing and growing, and now we're probably up to about 80 students, and we've got about 6 other teachers that teach here besides myself. Oh, I mean, we have some serious talent here in Monroe. It's just amazing. A lot of, piano players are my specialty, where a lot of my kids really shine. When I was growing up, music was my life. Coming from a broken home, it was something that I could always turn to, that was always there for me. And I can't imagine my life without music. I'm a career musician. That's what I did when I was in middle school, in high school. I went to college for music education, and I just can't imagine a life without music.